you have to turn on your emotions, like for like the feeling that you're creating, right? Like in someone's home, the dish that you're making. But as far as like if they don't like it, or if someone says like, oh, it's too spicy, like you can't take it personally. Like that's their taste buds, like that's their tongue, right? They have another sensitivity that you're not in tune with.
This episode is brought to you by FultonFishMarket.com, the most trusted name in seafood. FultonFishMarket.com is the e-commerce provider for New York's iconic Fulton Fish Market, the largest seafood market in the Western Hemisphere, trusted by top chefs for over 200 years. Fulton Fish Market provides a range of world-class seafood options. FultonFishMarket.com can help you serve a wide range of customers, whether you serve high-profile individuals or just strive for culinary excellence. They deliver directly to your doorstep in all 48 contiguous states, providing a comprehensive selection of the finest seafood, from wild fish to caviar and shellfish. When it comes to seafood, FultonFishMarket.com is our go-to destination and the name we trust. Let's celebrate those who support us and dive into this episode of the Private Chef podcast with a taste of excellence and freshness. Visit www.fultonfishmarket.com to get 15% off your first order. Use code PrivateChef at checkout. Welcome to the Private Chef podcast, serving the 1%. I'm your host, Hennche, and on our show we speak to the best chefs, how they honed in on their skills to excel in the industry, and what it takes to work as a private chef for some of the most exclusive clients in the world. Welcome back to the Private Chef podcast. I'm your host, Hennche. In today's episode, we have the pleasure of exploring the extraordinary culinary journey of Chef Corey Belle. Originally from New York City and now based in Jupiter, Florida, Chef Corey's past has been nothing short of remarkable, from attending culinary school to becoming a chef on her way from Australia to Vietnam, and even making it as a finalist on Hell's Kitchen before the age of 30. Her achievements speak for themselves. Not only did she have the incredible opportunity to serve as Tiger Woods' private chef, but she continues to cater to other renowned athletes and celebrities in the Palm Beach and Florida area. A warm welcome to our special guest. Thank you so much for making time, Corey.
Thank you so much.
So tell us more about the journey, since we already just touched up on it, from Australia to Vietnam.
Yes. So I was living in New York after culinary school, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, I want to travel. I got to get out of here. And I bought a one-way ticket to Sydney, and that was it. I packed my bags at 25, and I landed there without a job, without anything, without an apartment. And I went straight to the best restaurant that I could find, which was Aria in the Sydney Opera House. And the chef is Matt Moran, and he's basically the chef of Australia. Like everybody knows him, very hard to work for. And I just went in and tried to get a job. And the first day he told me, no, you have no experience. Like you're not going to hang. It was all men from Europe, and I was the only American woman, young girl. And he said, no, you got to go. You got to go find some experience. So I did listen to him, and I went to a small little cafe owned by a woman, and she put me in the kitchen, and she said, here, make some specials for lunch. And that gave me like a boost of confidence. Like, okay, I do know food. Let me make some stuff. And then that job was like a few months. Like it lasted a few months. It was so hard, like 5 a.m. until 3 p.m. every day. And then you get home and you're sleeping in the middle of the day. Just terrible. But it gave me a lot of experience just working with other cooks and, putting out like tasty daytime food, accessible, like things that were just delicious. Yep. And then one day I said, I looked at the map and I was like, I'm so close to Thailand, to Southeast Asia. I got to go. So I packed my bags again. And whatever I had brought to Australia, I sold to a couple girlfriends that I met. Like, here you go, have my clothes. And I took a backpack and I ended up in Bangkok. And then I did backpacking, and I went from Thailand to Cambodia. And then in Cambodia, I met a girl from Canada, a young backpacker, and she was heading to Vietnam. And she said, I know this lady over there. She owns a restaurant. She owns a hotel. She's looking for a chef. So at 25, I was like, oh yeah, I can do that job. So I went over and I ended up getting this position as like the executive chef. Her restaurant is called the Cargo Club. It's in Hoi An. So it's in like the French colonial part of Vietnam. So beautiful. And then packed with like expats, like people from all over the world, my age, living there. doing random things, like art and a couple chefs. And it was just like, it was a great energy. And I said, okay, I can live here. And that lady ended up like giving us a hotel to live in, motorbikes. And she said, here, do this contract in my restaurant. My friend ended up working the front of the house with no experience, never worked in a restaurant, and she was running the restaurant, and then I was in the kitchen. So we ended up getting people coming in, like expats, going, oh, I heard you have gazpacho today, or, like chicken Alfredo, things that you're not going to get in Vietnam.
Yeah.
That the people really wanted, like the tourists were like looking, like, of course the food in Vietnam is amazing, but they were like looking for a little bit of like comfort from their countries. So I just tried to make food like that, and then learn from the other side of the kitchen was Vietnamese. So I was learning all of that amazing food and flavors and like the simplicity of Vietnamese cooking. And then also every day putting out like fresh pasta and things that they weren't making. So we learned from each other, and it was an awesome experience. And then after doing like 8 months there, I said, like, I missed home. Like I was ready to come back and put my feet back on, like US soil. And when I came back, I ended up within like 3 months auditioning for Hell's Kitchen. And I had this amazing story of, I was in Vietnam, and like right away I knew they were going to put me on. And they did. And then I ended up making it to the end with Gordon Ramsay. And it was like, and that was so long ago, like the season I was on was season 4. And I think they're on season 25 now.
Like, they've been rolling.
And people still send me messages on Instagram or like, oh, you were my favorite, or you were the worst. People really think like you're a character, right? And they edit you into this character to fill out the role of whoever you're supposed to be. So it is a real show of cooking, but it's also a lot of character editing. And
yeah.
But I had fun with it. Like I got to torture the boys' team and mess up their ingredients. And it's on Fox TV, so it's not like to me, it's not like Top Chef. It's not like a legitimate cooking show. Like we're all kind of like chefs that were like struggling a bit at that time in our careers and like, what are we doing? So somehow I made it to the end. And then I went back to New York after that and kind of was like fiddling around with like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I ended up actually falling into food styling, which is doing like food photography for magazines and commercials. So I did that during the day and then the private chef stuff at night. And the way I found like my first couple jobs, again, I had no idea what I was doing either. I just knew that I was in a city where there's people with money, people on Fifth Avenue, they're having dinner parties, they need a chef. So I ended up finding a gig on Craigslist, which is like, if you know that platform, that's old. It is old. And it was, I ended up finding this lady on Fifth Avenue across from Central Park. And she was so amazing and so nice. And she said, yeah, come in and like, I'll pay you cash and you can teach my daughter how to cook. So I was like in a galley kitchen, like in this tiny little apartment, but the family was so nice. And I ended up working for them like on and off, like 5 years in and out, like going to the house in the Hamptons in the summer. But it was such like a loose, it was just kind of, hey, can you come tonight, buy these ingredients, cook this, done. It wasn't like a proper staff position. So I think it was a good for me. That's the kind of person I am. I was kind of like testing the waters. And then from that, it gives you more confidence, like you start kind of like word of mouth, reaching out to other people. One person tells somebody else. And then all of a sudden, like you're working a few gigs during the year, which it gives you more experience. You're like, yeah, I'm a real chef. I can do this. And also my thing with being a private chef is like, you are making things that they truly want to have. Like, like a hot breakfast sandwich, things that they don't have to leave their house and they can just have that chef in there. So as a young person, it was like, I know how to cook that food for myself. I learned my skills in culinary school. Just make food that you would want to eat, and give it to these people. And from that point on, I can't say like I haven't messed up anything, because for sure you might burn something in the oven or start a small fire, something. But for the most part, if you kind of like cook with your heart, like you don't just cook with love. I know it sounds cheesy, but that's how I've kind of like kept my career going in private chefing, is like just kind of keep cooking. You really have to like know your client, and in the beginning you don't. So you have to kind of like feel like, okay, this person's so busy. They're running in and out. Make them an amazing like smoothie, things that they can take on the go. So it's like all about reading the client. And that is what I've learned like since I started this maybe like 20 years ago, is to kind of feel out your client, take it slow. Like people don't want to have like nervous energy in their house, which as
Yeah,
chefs, we can be a
that's
little sometimes
100%,
manic.
100%.
You have to move fast, but when they're
Yeah.
around, you have to be like, I'm calm. I got this. So that's kind of, I always say it's a lot of cooking, but it's a lot of personality too. Like you really do have to show that you are calm with their family, like don't talk too much. They don't want to hear your whole life story, even if you think they do. They don't, just a little bit, like you have to be personable, but not also like let them live their life in their house and go from there. That's pretty much my start of it, of feeling it out without a guidebook, of just kind of, being personable, but also just cook delicious food,
Yeah.
be calm, clean up, be nice to their dogs. Like it's a lot of dynamics. It's not just being a chef.
It's so funny.
I find.
Everything you just keep saying literally hits the nail on the head with what I have to do at work right now.
Yep.
We have dogs, and there's many moving pieces, so I constantly keep reading the situation, and it's so funny because it's just like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing every other day.
Yeah. And
And
that is like,
sometimes,
that's all private chefs, like it's like this thing that no one really, you don't know until you start doing it. And
yeah.
then you talk to other chefs and you're like, yep, that's normal.
And that's one of the reasons I love to have these private chef podcast conversations, because you there's like so much that you only can talk about with another chef that actually is in these shoes. Like it
Exactly.
doesn't, yeah, like I can't hit the nerve on a conversation with a restaurant chef to the same degree, because they have no idea what it's like to be in somebody's kitchen at their home, and with all of the randomness that comes
At
with
their
it.
home. Yeah. Yeah. So much random.
Yeah, this is so funny. And sometimes I keep joking that, for example, having like a piping hot pizza or fries is one of the biggest luxuries, because you can't get it unless you actually serve it right then and there in the house. And
Yeah.
I just love to make a point of that. And I never, like, for example, when I make pizza, I wanted to hit that plate piping hot just when I pull it out of the pizza oven, because I want them to
Like
have that
perfect.
experience at their house, because that's the difference.
And that is the hard part too. The timing of being a private chef is like, sometimes they're not ready to eat it. Do you know how many times I've like redone the same French fry?
Yeah,
Okay, let's start again. I'll give that one to the staff. One more time. Oh, they're coming? Okay, great. Because it is like such a pride thing. Like you
yeah,
don't want to serve soggy French fries. And I have jobs where they're like, oh, just put it in the oven. I'm like, oh no, please, it's gonna die. Like I already put my garnish on it. But again, you have to be adaptable to that. You can't. It's not your schedule. You have to.
yeah.
You're cooking for them. Sometimes it's like a little bit of an ego swallow where you have to be okay. That's what they want.
Yeah, and sometimes people have this really weird habits. Like, see, there's different. I give you a simple example. There's families who don't come before the food is served on a table because they don't want to waste their time. And then there's other families who want to sit down and don't want the food on the table before they sit down, because it gives them
Yeah,
that
they want
feeling
you.
that it's been there already. And and then I was thinking, I'm like, it's actually easier for me if you give me a time and everybody just like says 7:30,
If it
and
was
you allow me to serve on time. But like then you are in this weird limbo where, like, yeah, they could sit down now, they could sit down in 15 minutes, and then
My last job was just like that. I mean, it was
yeah,
like one kid at a time, like a 20-year-old, and then the 10-year-old, and then the baby, and then the mom and the dad. And it's really hard, and you're trying to act like you have other things to do.
yeah,
But again, these are the things that make you like a good chef, is like being adaptable to that and like let it go off your shoulder. Like, okay, like it's not about, yeah, like I might have made the most perfect thing, but they want it this way. And then you go to another client's house and it's another way. So you can't just kind of, it's like one of those jobs you have to be very like go with the flow, and I've learned that it's like, it's only going to make you more neurotic. Like if you care so much, like about like, no, like just make really good food and be ready to serve it when they are ready.
yeah,
And you learn as you go, like little things like, okay, I'm not going to garnish that until I see them coming, or I'm not going to put it into the bowl of the hot soup.
yeah,
There's so many tricks too, like so many tricks of the trade that you kind of like start adding to your book of, like I always heat my plates, like for the most part, like if
yeah,
I can keep those warm and little tricks. It's like if you serve, like I have a very older client, like in his 70s, he wants his soup boiling, like boiling. but don't use
That's
the microwave. Like it has to be boiling. And then same with his coffee. It's like, and you learn like these little things that it's like, it bothers them. Like, and that they are paying the price to have that service. You know, it's like, we are there to provide it to
And the
them.
thing is, we have to go by their priority. I'll give you an
Exactly.
example. You know, you can have like the nicest sous vide fish, but if they want the hot fish on their plate, you know, it's not going to be like lukewarm sous vide. It's just like you
Exactly.
gotta serve it boiling hot. And if that's their priority, it's got to become your priority.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I want to unpack your mindset a little bit because you know it's just like Hell's Kitchen kind of identified. It's an or it's a unique journey you embarked on, you know, and just like
Yeah.
having the stamina to fly to Australia one way, not knowing anybody, just walking into somebody's kitchen, and then you know, kind of evolving your way from that. What gave you the courage of why did you think this was the best path forward?
I don't know. I think it was more of like always say yes to everything. Like just say yes and then see what happens. If you see how many ads that I've responded to where they don't get back to you, or you write an email to someone like, oh, send me a menu. And then you spend, you know, like an hour writing this amazing menu and they don't even reply. Is
Yeah,
like, you have to turn off your feelings. You have to be like, I'm not going to take that personally. I'm a very sensitive person, like very sensitive. But when it comes to cooking, not at all. Like it's, you have to turn on your emotions, like for like the feeling that you're creating, right? Like in someone's home, the dish that you're making. But as far as like, if they don't like it, or if someone says like, oh, it's too spicy, like you can't take it personally. Like that's their taste buds. Like that's their
yeah,
tongue, right? Like but you also have to learn you're not always cooking it for your, like, you might like something very spicy. You might like the crunch on it. They don't. They have another sensitivity that you're, you know, that you're not in tune with. So
yeah,
I think my path was like in high school, I always knew that I wasn't going to go to like a 4-year college for accounting, or like a lot of my friends were like, I'm going to go for international business, or I'm going to do this. I knew myself, like I was always creative and that I needed to be busy, like doing something with my hands, standing up, engaging with someone, you know, like some person. I cannot be sitting at a desk. In high school, like I remember doing culinary arts, like the extra program that they have, and I loved it. Like I was just like even in 8th grade, thinking, yeah, like this is awesome. And then in high school, I started working at restaurants, you know, like being a food runner, then a server, then a chef, and it was like hanging out with older people, you know, like when I was 16, and I was like, oh, these people, like some of them are a little sketchy, right? Like you're gonna meet a few people that are like drinking, and it's not always a glamorous place. But I remember walking out of these restaurants at like 15 or 16 with like $200, you know, like good money. And I got to like engage with like different people at tables, and then working in the back of the house, like meeting all the chefs and thinking, yeah, like I don't know if I could do this, but it seems fun. Like it seems like a challenge, like an adventure. And for me, I don't know. I just never wanted like a boring, for me, I'm not boring. Like I need something to keep me energized, you know, like a little push every day, like something to make you nervous. And cooking always does. Like it always kind of like gives you a little like butterflies. Like even now I'm 40, and when I go the first day into someone's house, or I have a party this weekend, like I'm a little nervous. And if you're not nervous, then it's not good. Like for me, I want to be nervous so that I'm on top of it. You know, like I'm like thinking all of the things that I need to like cross off, and like where I'm going to shop. Now I learned to like, okay, like just prepare yourself. If you're prepared, then you show up with a smile, with some good food, put it out, and like what could go wrong? Maybe a few things, but like they'll never know. They'll
yeah.
never know because you're super prepared. So, and I think even like when I first started as a chef, I was like, I used to make it so hard for myself, like the way I would shop and the way I would go in. Like even still now, sometimes I get in and it takes me like 45 minutes to like unpack my groceries, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like flustered, you know, like I have to like hone it back in. And
Yeah.
like now I know with experience, like take a deep breath. That's not what they want to see. Like they need to start, you know, like a good trick that I know as a chef is like right away start cooking something in a pan, some onions, some garlic, something that's going to like make it
Yeah,
air. You know, like you got to show them your value, and the value is like your house smells good. It smells good, you know. So I
100%.
try to do
So
that.
when they walk into the kitchen and and it just like smells good, and then you know it's part of the excitement. Actually,
Yes.
there's something to that, and I'm getting more into that maybe in the last 2 years than in the majority of my career, is the psychology behind eating. And part of that is thanks to Andrew Huberman's podcast, because originally I got really frustrated, with the clients that want to eat super healthy, but then I see that they still actually want the real sugar and the real butter and stuff. And I was digging more into the psychology, and all of that also plays into how do they want to feel when they just check in on you in the kitchen, or maybe they just pass through the kitchen, and it's all the things you just mentioned. Just roast some garlic, roast some onions, give them that homey smell. Throw
Yeah,
something in the oven, like some dough with eggs and sugar, that makes it smell slightly caramelized and gives them like that baked feeling. And
exactly.
just prepare some of those simple things and put them on the counter. So when they walk in, they just can grab a cookie or something.
That's
It
right. Something.
Yeah,
Yep. Made. I agree. And it's like like cooking is like sensory, right? Like everything is smell and what you see and what you hear. And a lot of people do want to ask questions too. Like a lot of the younger people will be like, "Oh, like how did you make that?" Or what like they want to learn a little something. And a lot of chefs, I hear it all the time from clients. They're like, "Oh, that chef was so unpersonable. Like they didn't want to talk to us. They were just so serious." And it's like you have to be able to engage a bit. Like you have to be able to cook and talk, and
yeah,
then sometimes just cook. But people want to have, in my experience, like they want to have a little bit of a relationship with the person like that's touching the food, right? Like it's going into their mouth. They want to make sure that you're, like that you're not like dirty in the kitchen and that you're clean. Like they want to see that you're capable, but then they also want to see that like, oh, like this person can also hold a conversation with me. Not a
yeah,
long one, just a couple seconds, like, and I always teach people that the people that are interested in the cooking, like, oh, cooking is like sensory. So if you feel like you're about to burn something because it smells, just remove the pan. Just take it off the heat. Like I teach that to my husband. Don't freak out like in the kitchen because
yeah,
that's why people hire chefs. Like they don't know how to cook. People really don't. And it's a skill that we should all know, but they don't. And they can't believe that us, these chefs that are like, we've been doing it with such experience, that how many things we have in the oven, like 5 things cooking, and then we're flipping a fish and baking a pie. Like they can't get over it. So to me, it's a show. Like cooking is like theater,
yeah,
for these people. They think it's awesome, and I do too, but sometimes it's also very stressful, like it is. They say like a chef is like one of the top 3 careers of like stress, like a lawyer, a dentist, and a chef. Like it's stressful. Like you can, like you can burn yourself. There's heat. It's, how many times I burn myself like in a week, and I'm like, oh, just keep going. Like it's what are you gonna do? Like stop. You gotta keep going. So to me, that's also a part of why I love it, because it's exciting. Like you have to keep moving, and if you start like dragging your feet in the kitchen, it's like your food shows, you show. Like you don't want to be there. Like that's a big thing with chefs, is like the burnout that I find for myself. It's like you got to find ways when you're not there to like turn it off, so that when you come into someone's home, you turn it on, because it is like it's like you're showing up as a performer, as a chef
yeah,
performer. And I'm getting better at that. I used to be very very shy, like very scarily shy, that when I was like, oh, I'll just put my head down and cook, but like it's not going to get you too much. Like you can keep kind of doing that as a career, like you can cook, but it's like it's not going to fill your cup. You have to find a way to kind of like push out of that. Now when I go to tables, like at the end, and they want to have a little chat, I still am like kind of an introvert, like a little bit. But
Sorry for the interruption, but we gotta share the news with you. Nothing fishy from FultonFishMarket.com. They're delivering world-class seafood from New York City's legendary Fulton Fish Market straight to your door. Their fishmongers have helped countless chefs get what they need when they need it for over 200 years. Trusting FultonFishMarket.com means their experts work tirelessly to make your day run smoothly. Let your cooking skills shine and elevate your dishes with amazing seafood from FultonFishMarket.com.
I think that's part of my charm, like I'm like, oh, I'm a chef. I come out, have a little smile, a little giggle, a little talk with whoever, and then I got to go back, and then come back again when you can. But it's like, it's a fine balance of working that stressful position, but also like letting them know that they're very important, right? Like you're there to please them,
yeah,
which also is part of you have to be able to have a conversation.
yeah, 100%.
Right. I'm learning that.
I also think there's a lot more hiring around personality than skill. I mean, there's some families, that tuck away the chef in the kitchen, and it's like a
Yes.
restaurant, and they just get their food, and they just want the highest skilled chef, and they barely engage with them. And that's a position that I don't necessarily find fulfilling myself, and I don't think it's very fulfilling at the principles life or like side of it. And then there is a position side. The one I'm in right now is where the family is super personal. They like come and say bye to me before they leave, and and they're just. I think I'm working with them more for who I am than my skill set, and I'm surely think they could hire maybe more skilled chef in certain areas, but there's like this natural fit between who I am as a person and the things I love to cook and the things they love to eat.
Yeah. That's also how I found it. Like I'm kind of getting into that groove now where a couple times I was like, what am I doing? Like, what am I like exactly what you're saying, like the kitchen where you're like in a dungeon, like you're not talking to nobody. And that is very lonely, especially if you're not interacting with like other chefs or like you don't have a family or I don't know. Maybe some personalities can do that. But for me, and I would share that with other chefs, like it's okay if you do it for a little bit, maybe in the beginning or, like to
Yeah.
kind of build your skill set. But eventually it is nice that when you can find and when like when you're in a position, you're like, yes, this is working, And it's okay if like I've had so many in the recent like months and years where it doesn't, like, and you're like, okay, I'm going to stay for a little bit. If they're happy, I'm like somewhat happy, but you can kind of know it's a relationship. Like you can kind of feel if it's not a good match, from both parts, like from the chef and from the client.
Yeah,
And
100%.
I try to tell other chefs that like just you'll know inside your gut I think at a certain age too, like you're able to say like, oh, this isn't going to work for me. Like in your 20s, you kind of got to push through those hurdles and then kind of, not give up. And then as you get more skills, you can kind of be a little more, it's like the client can be decisive who they want, but we can also be that for clients, like we don't make demands, but they are looking for a certain something, and so are we, so that we can be the best chef. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think it's fair to look at the interview process for both ways. It's like, hey, I'm interviewing you just as much as you are me, because if
Yes.
this is not going to work for one of us, it's not going to be sustainable.
Yes. And I find a lot of chefs, like when I talk to them, the ones that are like still trying to get to the next level, that they haven't learned that yet, like they're still kind of like wondering why they're not holding on to a job or, And I was like, I think it is person. I'm not saying your personality is bad, but maybe you just have to keep working on that, like try to like read some books, like things to kind of build your confidence. And, the food is a big part of it, but it's not mostly when I find is like the clients are looking for that match, like to be comfortable. They want to be comfortable in their house,
One time I was interviewing, it's almost down the street from you in Palm Beach. And it was like a kitchen that had no windows, despite actually two of the walls facing, one was oceanfront wall, but it was just a wall. The other one would have faced like a nice outside green space. And I didn't put a single window in any of the walls. So the whole kitchen was like, and it was really intense job, like 12 hours a day. And I didn't have any daylight unless I would like go shopping. And I'm like,
yeah, and that's not a break, like, oh, take a break shopping.
And the thing is,
I think I worked that job. Very cool.
No personal engagement in there. It's like it was just very much me, that, and the team was separated in the house in such a way that like I would never see the family, and I would barely get to connect with the team. So it was just me in that like windowless room. It's like, this does not sound cool.
No, that's not good for your mental health,
Yeah.
Like, honestly, your food will start to slip, I find. And like, that's when your feet start dragging. You're like, oh, like I have to go out and shop. It's like, everything's just like painful. And like, that does not make us good chefs, So again, if you're desperate and you need a job and you have to do it like that in the beginning, I say, fine, like build your chops. And then you got to start to kind of like find out what's going to build, like make you as a happy chef. And like, so this career is hard, like we're on our feet. We're cooking, we're bending over, like it is labor intensive. Like we are tired, right? Like it's another level of tired when you're done a 12-hour shift.
Yeah.
And then it's not done. Like then you're thinking about the next day, what you have to cook, like it's a mental and physical exhaustion. So it is really important for me to find clients that make me happy, and then find ways in my life also to keep myself happy and healthy.
And what you just mentioned is another one of those, it's not that we drop the pen, so to say, we go home and it's done. It's like the next menu is waiting, and the more stressed you are, the more anxious you are about your relationship with the client, the less creative you will be, then
Every time.
it's like a downward spiral. So once you're in that place where you're concerned about what you put on the menu, and you know that the feedback might be like that, and then the whole creative process is being killed somewhere between feeling stressed or anxious about the response to the, and that's usually the beginning of the end. I feel like if because
Always.
then
You're
you
right.
feel like you micromanage in that little spot with those few ingredients that are left on their list that they actually want, and they took away like three-quarters of the techniques you would apply to the
Yep.
product, because they're like, no, I don't like this, and then by the time you're done with that, and you're like, okay, you're running in that tiny creative loop where then also they start feeling too familiar with everything, and they're like, this is kind of
Yeah, they get
uninspiring. It's
scared.
like the same, it's revolving.
Yep.
Can you look at some cookbooks and something? And it's that very weird spot to get back out of.
Yeah. And I've been giving that advice to other chefs, like when you get to that, it's just, you can't stay for so long where it burns you out, and then your self-esteem starts to like drop. It's not like you can't always take it personal. It's just sometimes, honestly, like if after 2 years, unless you have like this amazing family, right? Sometimes there's like an expiration, and it could be the best chef. You could be the nicest person, but they get sick of your food. Like
Yeah.
they're ready for something fresh to come in.
But again, it's
And I find,
psychology. There is science around this. There's, that the brain doesn't want to see, most brains at least, don't want to see and taste the same thing over again. And that's also evolutionary. The tongue wanted different flavors because it's the most likely that you cover all nutritional needs. And in the same sense, a chef has a certain style, and it's very hard to break out of that style and come up with something radically different unless you force yourself to be that creative, or you immerse yourself in different experiences. And if you work full time for one family, like 5-6 days a week,
it's so
the
hard.
the
Yes.
reality is on day 7, it's not that you go out there and you try to do a starch in some restaurant that breaks you out of your shell. The reality is on day 7, you're just exhausted. You want nothing to do with anything,
Exactly.
and the creative process is dead.
Yes. No, and see, that feels good to hear that from another chef. I'm like, oh, it's not just me. Like, we all feel that, of like, it's just too much sometimes. You really do. Like, my last job, she wanted me to work. It was a 5.5 day schedule, like 5 full days, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then a half day. And I told her, no, I can't. I said, I will do 5 days, and I will make those days count. Like, you're going to feel like I'm here for that 6th day. If I come on that 6th day, it's not going to work out. I'm going to burn out. And she was like, no, you're right. You're right. Thank you for telling me that. I'm like, you're welcome. Because that's why your other chefs are not lasting. Like, it's too much. It's too much. Maybe
Yeah.
you have like, like you're just pushing in your career, and I've done it, like the 6-day schedule, or they put you on 7 days because they're going to go away and then you have a little break. It doesn't matter. It's like, as a chef, you are going to start to be drained for the creativity, for all of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I start to put that a little bit as not a demand, but just like, this is what I need in order so I can do my job amazing for you,
And it takes some time because, see, in the beginning, you just want to get time on your resume, and you also want to benefit from the earnings we have. But once you get past that stage, you're like, okay, now I have a little bit of a clientele here, or I have relationships, and I know I can get back in the door. Then you kind of turn around, like, okay, what would quality of life look like in this? And these are some
Exactly.
tough conversations, because even maybe if you deal with an agency, you have to tell them, like, no, I'm not willing to do that. Like,
Yep.
this is for me coming from Europe. In Europe you have six weeks paid vacation,
Yep.
and you just have a lot more quality of life. And it's something that over the years I kept pushing also with my clients. I'm like, hey, I understand that this is normal for all of you, but it's not working for the majority of you. I see people getting burned out left, right, and center. There's a lot of
Yep.
the chefs that don't last in the position. If you want to have a sustainable relationship with your staff, you have to start giving them a real break, and not what you think the standard is, especially the chefs.
Absolutely.
Like, unless
Yeah.
you start counting their hours, because the other day on Memorial Weekend, I hit 37 hours in 3 days. And that's not like unusual. So don't
Yeah.
tell me I have to do a 5-6 day work week in the Hamptons, because then I'm ending up with like 80, 90 hours, and you're
It's
telling me
crazy.
I'm working just a regular work week.
Yep. And I find like the more we advocate for that, like the chefs that have been doing this for a while, and we have these clients, like you just said, to share that with the clients or other chefs, like, you have to put down some boundaries. You know, like you need to take a break, and that break should not always be shopping. You know, like
Yeah.
it should be a quality of life.
Yeah,
Like we have to have
shopping is not a pretty.
it's not a privilege. It's not fun. That's actually like, and my last job, she wanted me breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I said, I'm going to do Instacart. I'm going to do Instacart, and then I'll source locally from the seafood, and
Yeah.
I'll still shop. And she's like, but don't you want to pick out the cauliflower? And I was like, no, like I don't. If in a perfect world, yeah, I would love to be able to go to the produce and hand select. But when you have me at your house, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then also making snacks between breakfast and lunch and between dinner, and then cleaning, when exactly would you like me to go do that shopping? You know, like
Yeah.
you have to think about it. And then she understood. She was like, yeah, this is great. This is working amazing. And I was like, I know.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you're in a place like New York City or the Hamptons, or
Yep.
actually, Florida is just as bad in traffic. So
The traffic.
I got stuck down there as well as in the Hamptons and New York City. You just risk not being back on time if you run out
Back on time.
to the wrong place at the wrong time. And like
that's
this
so
whole
that
idea
horrible, you know?
of going shopping, for example, local in Long Island, to go to drive to some remote farm for 45 minutes one way to get
Terrible.
the chicken. And I'm like, if I get stuck on 27 and I'm not back in time, you won't enjoy your dinner. And that's the reality of it. So I have good relationships with certain farms, or over the last decade, I've researched certain farms and like farm co-ops that I can get delivered in certain ways, whether it's Fresh Direct or Instacart or
Exactly.
through other. And I'm like, this stuff might look like it comes from a big box truck, but I know which farm it comes from. This is great quality, but I don't have to run out the door and waste my time every single day to get you that chicken.
No, it's exhausting. And it's also like, these are the things you learn as you go, you know, like as you have more experience, is informing the clients about these things. You know, like they live in a different world. They live in a world where everything is brought to them at ever, you know, that they tell someone and it's done. We are the ones making it happen. So in order for me to do that, and I'm not coming in with like sweat and like looking like a crazy lady, this is how I'm going to delegate, you know, like I'm going to have some help. Or when I do dinner parties now, I always ask for an assistant, not a sous chef, but like a server or a dishwasher, someone to facilitate getting the food out to the table hot, and then getting the dishes in the dishwasher. Like I cannot do it all. I can, but it's not going to be pretty. You know, like you have to be quiet in the house. You have to, like, they're having a dinner party. So I've had some clients that are in the 1%, you know, and they are a little resistant at first. They're like, but why? And I'm like, just let me show you why. Let's bring in someone from an agency, like a recommended server, and I'm going to show you how different the dinner party is. And then they see it and they're like, okay, sold. Let's bring her every time. And I'm like, absolutely. And it's going to cost this much money. And if we don't like the person, if the person is like, you know, it's not really working out, we just keep going. We find someone, a good fit. And like, that's what I've just been a little bit more, I tell them my fee and I say, this is including shopping, prepping, cooking, and cleaning my stuff, like cleaning the kitchen. But I need someone to come after me. If we have a party of 10 people, I need some help. A lot of my friends who are starting out and they're like in their 20s and early, they think that they just have to say yes to everything, like a yes person. No, you have to say yes to the opportunity and then like say your standards, you know, like, oh, like I work like this and I'll show you that it works better, you know, and the more confident you are when you say it, they believe you. And then you show them, you know, like you show them through the service, and usually works out good that way.
I think initially you try to make it work, and I've been there, you know, and you try to accommodate. But for example, you mentioned breakfast. I'm at a point where breakfast is the absolute, that's like a one-off. I don't know if you have guests, if you have a special occasion, I'm not doing breakfast for you because it will take away from the quality of everything else I'll do for you in the week, because you're stretching a day that's already 10 to 12 hours way beyond that.
Way beyond. That's true. Yeah.
And I've been on days where, you know, you get stuff ready early in the morning because they want an early thing, or they're traveling or something. And then they're asking for a dinner party and they're still entertaining 10 people. And suddenly you're clocking 17 hours and nobody even thinks about you, you know?
Nobody. No, and they don't. That's the thing. They don't. They think we're just like Superman.
Yeah.
You know?
And then
sometimes we are. Like sometimes we are. It is like unbelievable the amount of work that you do by yourself. Like I remember parties in the Hamptons that I used to run the meals by myself for like 12 people. like, and it was like a party of like 12 golfers or like VIPs, you know, and you have to look composed and like pour some wine. Like, I don't think so. And then run back to the kitchen. Look, you're not stressed out. Like, you've got this. And it
The
is
wine
like, that
part
is
is the best.
so bad.
You know, I'm like in the middle of everything. And the principal, you know, he's just coming up with a bottle of wine. He's not even saying, can you please open it? He's just like holding it to it. And then it's like,
Yeah.
open. And I'm like,
Yes.
I'm preparing for an entire party here. You asked me for there was multiple courses. And you want me to decay your wine? Are you nuts? Or what?
Yep. And they do it. That's what I mean. They think that we are magicians, that we can do it. And I just think it's best to like kind of start adding that to like other, you know, like private, like again, like there's no guidebook, right? But the more we talk about it, is like we have to put down some boundaries, you know, like you want your food to look amazing and beautiful and fresh.
Yeah.
No, then hire someone to decant your wine, you know, bring in a housekeeper, bring in a server, someone to help me, because you can't do all this, you know, it's impossible. We can if we tried, but it's like, it's not worth it. It's not
Well,
worth
I would put it that
you know?
way. See, if it's a one-off, it's one thing. Like, okay, if you find that things will slip and, you know, the wine won't be poured every single time the glass is empty,
Exactly.
and all of those nuances, if you're fine with them
And
getting
some people are,
behind,
yeah.
that's okay. But if you expect us to serve you the whole summer for multiple months, or, you know, is a full-time position, it's not a sustainable practice, because you will not establish a lasting team. And, you know,
Exactly.
like if you demand somebody to fly around the world with you, work 6 days a week in hand, all of those things, you might want to consider splitting that position into two chefs that
Those
both
chefs.
have more quality of life, maybe for a lower pay, and they're chefs willing to do that. That, you know, that maybe only want to work 3 days a week or 4 days a week. You still have full coverage for the entire week. They have a reasonable work-life balance. If they want, they can pick up a gig left or right, and if they don't, they have amazing quality of life.
Yeah.
And you will always have a better creative process in the menu and everything, because they're actually enjoying coming to work more.
Yes. Yeah. I've been
Rather than,
trying to
yeah.
educate people about that a little bit, you know? Well, and I think they like hearing from like the normal people, you know, like the working class, when we explain that to them. Because they're at a different level. So it's like they kind of like that normalcy, like, oh, it should be like that. I'm like, yeah, it should. You know, and you'll see the value in it. You'll see a refreshed chef. You'll see someone smiling instead of just like a nervous, you know, like there's a lot of unhealthy private chefs. Like that's what I've encountered when I come in to like take over a position, where the stories from the clients are really negative, you know, like, oh, this chef was like a drinker and like they were like overweight and they were coming in here sluggish. And I'm like, yeah, because they're burned out. They are over this job, you know, and it's like, I don't want to leave a job like that. I want to put my mark on it. When it's done, leave on a good note. But also, I'm here to show you, like, this is how a good chef operates, you know, organized. Like when you come in with your bags and everything, it's like, you're cool as a cucumber. You're not just, and I've worked with some other ones where it's like they come in to help me. And I'm like, oh God, you've had a rough night, or you're like super stressed at the market trying, you know, it's like, that is not going to make us good chefs for that client. So I think it is educating everybody, everyone, as much as we, you know.
I think there's really something to that. And there's actually a couple of agencies that are working with the principals to educate them about the needs of their staff and what is a realistic expectation. And I think that's good, because there needs to be kind of a standard in order for you to not burn it out. Because otherwise you have to learn it. Like, you know, if you're first generational wealth and you just have the money to suddenly have a household and you don't know what it actually means, you will just have to go through your own experience, which means you will burn through a couple of different staff members for maybe 5 to 10 years till you get the message yourself.
For sure. That is one of my experience. Yeah. No, a lot of the new money is like it's a whole nother level of, you know, teaching them, letting them know, like, I've been doing this for so many different clients and different, you know, different types of families. But the general rule is like, you have to treat the people that work for you. You don't have to treat them like family, but you have to treat them like a human, you know?
Yeah.
And I've seen some situations where like somebody talks to somebody so disrespectful, and I'm like, okay, one more time and I'm out of here, because like I have boundaries too.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to get a reputation for that I put up with that, you know. But it's another level of like, you know, working for these type of people. It's like a very unique situation, you know. So it is good to talk about.
And one interesting thing I learned is actually families have to pay, and some of them might be willing, they have to pay a premium the less appreciation and human traits they show you. Like, and the interesting thing is there's a end to the patience coming towards money. So you can add however much money you want to add on top. People will eventually quit. There is an expiration date to it, but
Yes.
people
Yeah.
will work for less money if they feel appreciated and braced. And that's the interesting part. It's like, if you want to run your household well and you learn just how to genuinely appreciate people for certain things, and that doesn't mean you don't hold them to a better standard or you ask for new ideas and new recipes, but you, instead of incentivizing them with higher pay and just trying to get the best chefs, but you treat them like shit,
Yeah.
which always
Yep.
will lead to a short expiration date of the relationship.
No, it's so true. Like I have a client, they just left for the Hamptons, but they're down here during the normal season. And every time I cook for them, they call me to the table at the end. They clap for me. Like they make me take a bow, which is so embarrassing, but like they're so appreciative. And she comes and hugs me, the wife. Like I just emailed her the other day, like, hey, do you have any friends that are here for the summer that don't leave for the Hamptons? And she's like, hey, how about we just hire you in the fall? Like, how about we just hire you full time? And I was like, yeah, that works. Let's do it. Let's do that. And she's like, we miss you so much. And I'm like, those are the people that I want to work for.
Yeah.
Like I don't work for a pain in the ass. Have I? Yes. Have I had to? Yes. But now, I don't know. I feel like I'm at a different, and it's a different level, but it's not because of my skills. Like I can pretty much make a version of anything, mostly, but it's more about because my personality, like I like to be present with people. Like I want to be able to like talk to you for just a moment. I mean, this lady, the one time I went to her house, like we ended up sitting on her floor with her dogs, like just talking about life. Like she's very into like spiritual, and like to me that's priceless, like someone that's like talking to me like a human, not just a chef. And those are the people that keep me going, like now that I'm kind of acquiring nice clients, it's amazing.
I love that. It's like going full circle in your own career. It's like from, trying to get a job in Australia and Sydney and like being rejected for not having experience to having so much
Yeah.
experience where you can actually cherry pick your clients to some degree and say, hey, I want to work with the good ones.
Yeah, that's how I feel in the past couple of years. And also like after working for Tiger, that was like such an experience, like he's the GOAT of sports, and
Yeah.
it's not what you thought, like the type of job it was. It was more just like very simple food and kind of like keeping him healthy. But it gave me such a confidence, like when I left there, like thinking, okay, I cooked for him and I did it and I was pretty much happy there. And every day was different, like every day there's like different celebrities coming in and out. And sometimes you were just, oh my God, like trying to be composed. But it taught you like, wow, I can handle myself, like I can make the most juiciest burger under pressure.
Yeah.
And whether they eat it or not, because sometimes they don't. Sometimes you make all this food and like the person's like, no, I'm on a diet.
Yeah.
That type
I've
of
been
thing.
there.
And not to get personal, but that you still like that you were there and you were part of this experience. And now I feel like I never have like where I have an interview with like an agency or something or a client, or I go into someone's home, like I feel empowered, like just very like I'm like a badass, like kind of like my last client sat me down and he owns a bunch of magazines. He is like very successful. And he was like, wow, you have some career. And I was like, yeah, I do. Like, thank you. That was so nice. Like, and it just made me feel like this person saying it to me that is like, I would say that to them, like about their career and that they're saying it. It doesn't make me cocky. It just makes me feel like, yeah, like I put in the work. Do you know how many times, like as a chef, like I wanted to quit and say, like, I'm going to go be a Pilates instructor. Like, I can't do this anymore. This is too hard. And then I just kept plugging along, like I kept on LinkedIn. I kept trying to also like outsmart the game a little bit. Like I would go on Instagram and look at like hashtags for like luxury concierge services. And then like that's how I got my last job was Live Golf. So they're like the PGA breakaway. And my client's from Saudi Arabia. And he is the nicest guy ever. And he just comes and he flies in like once a month, rents a house, and we cook for him and his family. And when I met him, it was right after Tiger Woods' job. And he said, oh, we have a celebrity chef here. And I was like, I'm not a celebrity chef. Like I worked for, I guess, a couple people. But it was, again, like someone like that, like so nice, this guy. The guy has billions of dollars and he's like taking the time to compliment you. It makes you feel empowered. It makes you feel like, yeah, I'm glad I stuck with this. it's been hard. It's not an easy journey, but like, look at me now, and I can still see my career like still climbing, you know, like I don't
Unfolding,
think,
yeah.
like I feel like it's still going, and I just keep saying yes to people and see what happens.
Well, this is calling for a round two at some point to see where you're taking it. Thank you so much, Corey, for
Thank you
making the
so much.
time. And where can people connect with you, whether they just want to connect with you on a chef level or maybe hire you?
Let's say through Instagram. It's Chef Corey Belle B. I'm on there, and then you can also search Corey Belle Erling on LinkedIn, and those would be two good places to find me.
Awesome. We will also make sure to add it to the show notes. And you are a
Okay.
celebrity chef, and you're becoming a celebrity in
Yay.
your own right in the industry now.
Thank you so much. It was so good to talk to you.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, FultonFishMarket.com, the best seafood in the nation, trusted by the best chefs in the world. Aside from offering premium seafood, they also make life easier for you by delivering all these outstanding products right to your doorstep. Visit the official website www.fultonfishmarket.com and explore their incredible selection of seafood and let your clients experience quality that has captivated palates for generations. Use code PRIVATECHEF at checkout to get 15% of your first order. When it comes to seafood, FultonFishMarket.com is the name we trust. Thank you for joining us at the Private Chef podcast. If you know any highly skilled chefs that want to take their life to the next level, make sure to share this podcast with them. And if you enjoyed this episode, click subscribe and check out our upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.